Hey guys, it's your favorite coach, Betty with Nelson Career Curators, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about interviewing. Now, I really was so interested in doing this video because I noticed how some of you are interviewing, and I want to be able to really provide you with some feedback because interviewing for some of you is very hard, and when you don't have feedback, it makes it just that much harder, especially for a position that you really were qualified for, but because you're not, necessarily a great interviewee, I should say, you don't get the job. A few things to remember is that you are already qualified for this position. You've worked very hard to get to where you are based on the credentials and your experience and your skills already written on your resume. Now that you have the interview, just remember that the interview is an opportunity for the organization to get to know who you are and for you to get to know a little bit more about the organization. So some of the things that you could pay attention to is, of course, your body language, which is very important when it comes to interviewing. Have your back straight, make sure you're professionally dressed. Whatever you're wearing does not have to be skin tight. It's really not encouraged in the business world, in the corporate world, to have a skin tight clothing. It does not have to be skin tight. You're not going to a party, you're going to an interview, right? Of course, make sure your hair is nice and you have your nails professionally. Well, it doesn't have to be professionally done, but it has to be clean and presentable. Now, the next thing is have your confidence with you. That is your biggest accessory when you get into this interview. Understanding and reminding yourself that you really want this position. If this is a position that you absolutely really want, then you should be able to articulate that in your body language and in the way that you're answering the question. Some of us get in our own way. We are so nervous about answering wrong, saying the wrong thing, or maybe I should have said a little bit more, or maybe I should have said a little bit less. But you're not there to perform. You're there to be yourself. And you have to be okay with the outcome that you may necessarily not get this position, right? And that's okay. Maybe that organization wasn't a good fit, but it's very important for you to go on this interview and be yourself, a professional yourself, right? You don't want to get too personal, what's going on at home. You definitely want to stay away from being too personal. And what do I mean by being too personal? Oftentimes, and I've experienced this on some of the interviews, which is why I'm making this video, is to address a little bit of that. Getting too personal, meaning, maybe something happened in the family and, you're going into details, or maybe you experienced something that happened to you personally, medically, right? And now you're providing details. That is not the forum for that. You want to remain professional and you want to, again, stay away from being too personal, okay? Because that kind of scares, maybe scare is not the right word I want to use. It turns off the person who's interviewing you. It's like, does that mean that every day you come to work, I will have to hear about your personal life every single day when we are in a business setting and we have work that needs to be done? Unfortunately, that is just how it is. Work needs to get done. And if you can't handle what's happening at home and you're bringing it to work, is that the expectation on a daily basis? Some of the other things that I wanted to address on this video about interviewing is some folks have accents, okay? And I've been asked this question before. If I have an accent, do I apologize for for having an accent and not being able to articulate what I have to say right away. Now, I understand this very well. Sometimes when you are bilingual, trilingual, whatever your native tongue is, you take time to have to translate from your native tongue into your head. You're translating in your head before you come out to speak. And it's not that you didn't hear the question because you heard it, but you're taking time to process all that information before you finally say what you have to say. Okay. Now, the best thing to do is don't apologize for having an accent. Don't do that. Because when you're going to speak with folks on a day-to-day basis, you're going to say, I apologize for having an accent, but I'm going to say this. Don't do that. Just buy yourself some time by saying, that's a good question. Or, that's a great question. And then as you're processing in your head, then you pause for a little bit and then you answer the question. Okay, and you take your time in answering the question, because being bilingual myself, well, trilingual, I can really understand and relate to the fact that some words you have to translate them in your head before you actually verbalize them. And so just take that pause. Say by the time again, that's a very great question. And then answer the question. And that's fine. And that's totally fine. Okay. Another question, what time should I arrive? This was another question. Or I noticed some folks arriving like an hour before the actual interview, or like coming late is never acceptable, even if it's 5 minutes. You want to get into the habit of coming in very early. Come in about 15 minutes before your interview. That is appropriate, okay? Also, be mindful that you are being interviewed by everyone, not just the person you're meeting for that day. You are being interviewed by everyone in that office, everyone in the building. So from the time you enter the building, and this is a true story, this has happened to me before. I was on the way to a meeting, and I was meeting this person for the very first time. It was a very important client to the company where we're working at the time. And I didn't know anyone. It was my first time there. Of course, I was professionally dressed. And I walk into the elevator with this individual, and I'm like, wow, it's such a nice day today, don't you think? And, she responded like, really? I hadn't noticed. I'm like, you hadn't noticed just how, warm it is today, and like the sun is out. I mean, we haven't had any sunlight and this was in New York. We haven't had any sunlight in quite some time. And finally, we're getting all this sunlight. Oh, it just makes you very happy. And she was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, you have a great day. And it just so happens that she was like, well, I'm getting off this floor as well. I said, oh, okay, well, great. And she's like, where are you heading to? And I'm like, well, I'm meeting, this person. And she's like, oh, okay, why don't you give me 5 minutes and I'll come back and get you. I'm like, oh, I'm meeting with you. Oh, that's wonderful. I can't even count how many times this has actually happened to me. It happens to me quite often. And that's just to say, we had a great meeting, by the way. And established a very great relationship after that. But my point is, you never know who you're going to meet. And that's just not only applicable for when you're going on an interview. This is also applicable for whenever you're just, anywhere you go, right? Anywhere you go. For my introverts out there, I understand some days you just don't feel like talking or interacting with folks, and there's a polite way to do that, right? You keep smiling and you just, go about your day, and that's fine. So, are there any other questions? So, being on time early, I mentioned that. Well, not being on time early. If you're on time, you're late. Being there early, 15 minutes before your interview. Dress professionally, of course. Nothing's tight for the interview. Have some breathing room, in whatever you're wearing. Be professionally dressed and presentable. We mentioned that. What else am I? And smile and talk to everyone. Again, you never know who's really interviewing you, and you may not even know the folks that are crossing the hall are the final decision makers and whether or not you get to join that organization or not. And also, I mentioned the accents. Those of you who have an accent, just take your time. And one way to buy time before answering the question is, that is a great question, and then answer it, right? Okay, well, I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any additional questions that I didn't address in this video that may be helpful to you, and it may be helpful to very many other folks, you just are the one who asked the question, and I certainly appreciate that you're asking questions. Let me know, drop a comment, and I'll be happy to either address it in another video or just answer it on the message, okay? All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Nelson Career Curators, and Career Curators on Twitter, Nelson Career Curators on LinkedIn. We're also Nelson Career Curators on Facebook. And if there are any other type of videos that you would like to see when it comes to your career and helping you advance in your career, share that with me, okay? All right, guys, thank you so much again for watching this video, and you have a great day. Bye.